Bakaradong dangas e doreng azul Dios El una mayo baro Toko Nilubel alma Clira bebu La clovelda Almara kalel Badulang aba Ang aray dararo lelaoy Mama Cecil tamang maralong ilel tel balu
Belargi da ora orgi Algum sella ullel maringalasi Lewida algalela mangkakarong sevitang Kabitalyang mabitalyang lamangas akan remidak klub kalim madagat maklin diga sederaro del bere elaan agyoda masa ulan en diaga moaiga
Endi dawang taros Level
kilang umawan alin set mola alda
Tigawing arwal Emo uligay yung lumagas babal Emo datya erang ule maluwek Alaba Eraw raw raw Basang lama ideal Emo lamal malmaro tiyarigin Gabong ulyun salma
Taal Jesus, Agum Tera Familira Toribiong Uchel, Embre Masuliu Limal Tial Tugubet Sils. Maamo Gimerak, Rapol Dilusabro. You want to go to Miguel, I get classified information at a disclose after 50 years. Ako tagure nga sulira, Miguel Toribiong Artiam, Kemarin yang Miguel Tutur, Kata Toribiong, Miguel Haribong, Sister Ringi, ada anak Toribiong Arbay, Kata Toribiong Uchel, Hari ini ada waring penyok, kota Toribiong era terakhir, direct hari ini ya, ay betul ngartian, ay betul lah, hari lalu lagi kita rumah, Toribiong hari ini dalam belum live streaming dia pastor Seventh Day Adventist Church, sila iglesia ulur Gibbons family, terus kita invite Arubas, Iray Galaw, Algia, Toribiong Uchel ng Algia lang Arubas ng Ranway, Awe, Makulubakal Marubas, Atala Algia, Atala Karatira Lux, Toribiong, Akaray Makasangi, Pagya Arubas, Pagya Marunan ng Ramam, Margam Sik, Martiang, Direktor dia Toribiong Uchel, Matakeo niya ulong makasringil. Tatala Toribiong direct pastor sa lugar na ginel bilang bilulu Celsius hindi atal pang-ito muli ang lebay. Masya ni Gibbons saligit classmate na from grade 1 to college. Brother Janil Ura Deolidit and my American brother Jack Beers. Para sa Ulbeklat at tuli ka mule meron yung atang rabit. Ikaw maatal ko rabit. From Kyoto, Toribiong Raburay-ray, so Martiang. Teman dia invite tidak menjadi lebih yang kau alsan. Resurse endorni tel era bisilet logi ontila nanumi. Nanumi youngest ng legela Toribiong. Domestic program sales March 8. Dan nga memorial service sa STA Church. Set behind ringiya was a Tirigil katalang karuba kalin the survivor. Kung ano niya bigil uliyay, latara 2012, si Joel 11. It was a children, Johnson, Francis, Lacus, Joel, Deborah, Mayring, Rodea, Nanumi. Matalak, tatari yung tinigong lahat, mga nilong sister Ricky, maruman betul brother Ricky. Tiap program aku bang, tiang set program set sils. Ultrukli a former principal ng Palabas Academy, Mrs. Sra Joel Ultrukli May. Tiap program atau Mr. Ringi yang wasay ulmo la program logi wa organ, lulus ko Ringi ar meriak betul. At the timing atin argil, wasay meriak. Wasay narinya him beyond the sunset. Narinya scripture reading luluwi ringi Russell Aldrich, Psalm 90 verses 1 through 12. Naringi pastoral prayer offer ringi Solomon Momogi. The invite ringi na kasabay mail ng age mabadagan na ito. Wasay eulogies Manuel Godinez, District Administrator, Mr. Lazarus Saleh, Secretary of Palau Legislature and Assemblyman-elect. There was a obituary, Pastor G.A. Haas and Sarah. There was a sermon, Pastor G.A. Haas, Interpreter Willie, Pagdobo Willie. Special hymn, directed by Russell Aldrich, and benediction by Pastor Haas. Il programa yung musuh bergi, mang ilal time at suhu diugil, kita try kita melas replicate ni. Jangan larang ulumanan ni marot hardly terbetul lihat beri. Hard to remember. Sila lemah dengan 18 going on 19, Subak pasigi dia French ane 12 ane 16 argil, Lakusa 14, Yoela 12, Deborah 10, Maideng 8, wala yang 6, and me 4. Pero dia bertigir dia boleh terbilang masuk masuk asum dia tidak gini betul yang alut nama boleh kata. Kata nama bong. Apa motivar new yang beringi alitak le, yang beringi yang dulu, yang beringi yang bersoy. Ya program apa? Aku tidak recognize Sister Helena. Dia adalah actually first cousin na Toribiong. Yang artinya. Sila lamading 8 surviving children, and anit na palong toys, Eli, Tamlara Bilas, and Borsel Basyo. Francis Amanagali, Lord Tisel Basyo, at Tiloy Taburingi and Militang. Alam mo ba rin, kaya ililutan may. Nung Magil Lakto, after 50 years, and lamang tilgiban, lelak laring, kaya dalawang katakla tukoy. Lesel tayo managlo emotion, passion. Entrar yang perform tigil grandchildren to Toribiong elementary ni takra beyond the sunset. Ngaringi ngarang program ni was beyond the sunset. Se program pun was to a few his life was a memory. To many of us it's a history. But his inspiration remains. Kung gasot nagpalgasay, martiyan ang lian na silta. Welcome, Mr. and Mrs. Pirantozin Ngatiang. By the way, at may invite rang niya sumang. Toribiong sinulat kini ya sumang ang cheerleader. Le inspire ni rapid lessons. Yan le katran le ko proses la Toribiong aran. Sila meron dia ng midok krayon mara ba midok clear wa la sumang. That's true story. Laktikan mereka na grandchildren na Toribiong yan. Takra beyond the sunset.
If you're making it arriving tonight sa last game. Arriving tonight.
Heaven is
Toribiong Uchel scripture reading. Ate Helen.
Psalms 90, verses 1 through 12. Lord, you've been our dwelling place in all generations. Before the mountains were brought forth, or ever you had formed the earth and the world. From everlasting to everlasting, you are God. You return man to dust and say, "Return, O children of man." For 1,000 years in your sight are but as yesterday when it is past, or as a watch in the night. You sweep them away as with a flood. They are like a dream, like glass that is renewed, or grass that is renewed in the morning. In the morning it flourishes and is renewed. In the evening it fades and withers. For we are brought to an end by your anger. By your wrath we are dismayed. You have set your iniquity before us, our secret sins in the light of your presence. For all our days pass away under your wrath. We bring our years to an end like a sigh. The years of our life are 70, or even by reason of strength 80, but the span is but toil and trouble. They are soon gone, and we fly away. Who considers the power of your anger, or the wrath according to the fear of you? So teach us to number our days, that we may get a heart of wisdom.
Kay ibu sa Pastor Solomon mabulit tra lukaw tanang lulu. Excuse me. Then short prayer to Lord. Tagi oringil brother Pastor Pogin Solomon. Nekiril me mo dia kan bebe pandiput. Tra brother ringil ara sa church mo. Offer a short prayer. After that, the Lord Yablu.
Yosef tambah apa berbuas. Anak tu aku. Kata number kamu besar apa? Tegi mormi drama mau pengira kerja apa tu? Di kawah sergawa jalan sendiri. Oh itu mam jadi berde. Tega tiga rumah kemam. Kemau itu mam berjaya kip lah. Keman besar tiar kelangan sih tiar pelari lah. Di bersela pelula terubah makimo. O meraikil untuk suam rasa kiri bomesa sel sering. Di kau merubah rasa sel sergemam. Maka mau mai kemam bersel itu tahu. Dan mau bersel belul kamat pokoknya kira. Mau tengah terang alkirat Toribiong. Alkirat betul. Alkirat. Alkirat tergal mai betul markla betul bar bebi ringin rogu tatam keman masaul aklave sar bebi kema lagi dior terboker kema berogu la sekawa atar sen rogu sekema mamakil tengah terkema berogu raigil tebek dalam aklam arangal kas tatam keman masaul Iman beringat sudah berenal Yesus, jadi dulu lokal kalian akan Yesus. Amin.
Kailangan mo niya dinner. Kung makaliw po kanya programa malmol, masjid lagi sales. Masjid itu pun dia gitra. Gitra ibu dulu mau ada di omrai lagi ada bar soal, mangira ite, pas lubang ya habis aku hidup masih lo masih terus Gurgitra Viera Toribiong Uchel, el Iwi Biology, District Administrator Manuel Godinez. 1965, kay Mabel Claus Paris Accent Tagila Puerto Rican. Kaya tulik siya at kanya speech contest niya ang gamle honor gid. Ka 3 ka mapaste nga kawan. Nakapto ba? Anyway, Vera Moral May. Deliver it slowly, eh? Okay.
This is a special message from the Office of the District Administrator. This is a special message to all the people of the Palau District regarding the sudden death of our late Palau Legislature Speaker, Mr. Toribiong Uchel, which was received from the High Commissioner of the Trust Territory of the Pacific Islands. Deeply regret the sudden death of the Palau Legislature Speaker, Mr. Toribiong Uchel. Please convey my sympathy to the people of Palau, particularly relatives and friends of the late speaker. As a leading citizen of Palau with many years of public services, as member of the former Palau Congress and present district legislature, his sudden death is great loss not only to the people of Palau, but to all his friends throughout the Trust Territory. High Commissioner, voting sense. The District Administrator, Mr. Manuel Godinez, and all the members of the District Administration of Palau, both Americans and Palauans, employed in the government, join with the High Commissioner in expressing their sympathy and condolence to the family, relatives, and friends of Mr. Toribiong Uchel, and to all people of the district for this great loss, which we all feel so deeply in our hearts. The district administration and the Palau legislature join in mourning by lowering all the Micronesian flags, the United States flags, and the United Nations flags to half-mast for a period of 7 days, beginning Monday, March 8, 1965. Tiang atau kubet selsubet, loltob deringi ya obisra district administrator. Tiang atau kubet selsubet, el muraro gul adar belau. Lultobdia High Commissioner la Trust Territory la Pacific Islands. Ngmal lo makita ru rakren sa isel agodel la Speaker la Palau Legislature Mr. Toribiong Uchel. Mamspada trir al other belau mar adal mar sa alil rakantila ru bertial klol warrior. Nigal ab Atarak klo angan alel labuar belau lengaringi abatokal rak lorior atokoy rablu ral adra Palau Congress Matial District Legislature kalela Matial godalel akmal klor varior elmurar adra belau marsa alil atras territory lumi. A District Administrator, Mr. Manuel Godinez, Batirigel Roguy, al-Adra District Administration Belau, al-Adra Marigel, mar other bela. Elo dior ra government a Obangela High Commissioner Golding. Elo lool takantila ranggi. El mura rangel mar adal mar saalil a Mr. Toribiong Uchel. Edi regalo wise ra other bela. Artial klol varior. El kman makit arungudrin. A district administration, Mapalaw legislature, abot mak el mawayong mabandera na Micronesia, mamarigel, ma United Nations, amo mongangat, el morat de robo, rawar yang arsay, lewidil club say, el lomul, rakotulurior, ra March 8, 1965. Signed by Manuel Godinez, District Administrator, Palau. Speech by the District Administrator, Mr. Manuel Godinez, at the memorial service of the late Speaker of the Palau Legislature, Mr. Toribiong Uchel. This is a very sad time for all of us. We have lost a leader and a friend. And on behalf of the district administration personnel, both Americans and Palauans, and the people of Palau, I wish to express our heartfelt sympathies and sorrows to the family, relatives, and friends of our late speaker. We all know Mr. Toribiong Uchel, and his loss is immeasurable. When a tragedy like ours happens to any people, the sudden deprivation brings about a special feeling of closeness, even among those with dissenting views. It also compels us to take stock of what we have lost. We are all gathered here because we all are sharing in the sorrow of this tragedy. We are also here because something inside each one of us is missing, and we dare not bear the burden of the loss alone. And we have lost much. Mr. Toribiong Uchel was a valuable citizen. He was a great leader. As an outstanding public figure, there is no need for me to speak for him. Instead, let his accomplishments speak for him. Mr. Toribiong was one of those few who, after the war, were responsible for the creation of the Palau Congress. Ever since that time, his public career has centered around that law-making body. In 1950, he was elected president of the Palau Congress and was in office when the United States Department of the Interior took over the administration of the Trust Territory from military authority. He was responsible for the smooth transition of the Palau Congress from military to civilian authorities. He once was a community court judge and an associate district judge. He has been a member of the police force and a superintendent of Palau elementary schools. He served in numerous government boards, committees, civil organizations, and has helped immeasurably in achieving the progress and prosperity now enjoyed by Palauans. He served a term in the former Council of Micronesia and helped much to bring about our first Congress of Micronesia. His public life reached its peak when the Palau Congress was changed into the Palau legislature, and he was elected its first speaker. His untimely death deprived us and him of many more accomplishments. Yet in our sorrows, we can look forward to better things which he had part in making possible. Blessings come to us in many forms, sometimes in disguise, and other times in tragedies. Mr. Toribiong's life will always be a lasting example for each of us who will carry on the duties he performed so well in life. We hope that his exemplary life will serve as a guide and inspiration to future generations, that the seeds of love, friendship, loyalty, and leadership he planted in this community will live forever in the hearts of those of us who have the privilege to know him.
Boy Mendoza Sils, Direct Naringi Ayurojira, for President Lazarus Sali, Serta President Yari, and give a legend to me, come up again me. At the time of the Association that Ayurojira Toribiong, said since March 10, Lara March 7, March 10 and going in the service. Uktor Telgib, Nasikum Jumila Bejang, a particular emergency tackle, I get a shell. Geruna kami compose. Sila tayo rin si model na klaro. Memang kita. Okay, one brand okay. Kirgel Brasilia Toribiong to me it demonstrate was in dia ka alam biglia 1 minute remata. In the blink of an eye, he was gone. If naka remains in the area, al bungil o erel maulibela didirigil mo bangil, mysterious. All of a sudden, the light was blown out. What God giveth, God taketh away. At kang morar mo, di kuwadil del di kanal adal nga aldil. Tumor bela. Aktik pulwa isi. Dela matin 43 again. I'm 68. I have outlived him by how many years?
24
By 24 years. Magpupulang kasi to a few, it's a memory. To many of you, it's a history. Elangin pa ito kada ko nung sel momentral nga. Di kanya report ng si Pastor Haas from March 10, 1965, what detail. Makibong mo yung again for a relevant section rin. Lengkam na rakwam ni. Menurut situasi, on Friday, March 5, I came to call for the purpose of conducting our spring week of prayer and also taking care of other important matters relative to our work in the islands. My first speaking engagement was on Sabbath, March 6, for the worship hour. For some unknown reason, to me, I felt the presence of the Holy Spirit surrounding me very much. Before going onto the platform, I asked Elder Toribiong, is the fire still burning in your soul? Smiling, he said, yes, it still is. Then I asked him what I should do during the coming week, if we should have public evangelistic meetings on each evening, or if there was some other need. He replied, "We need a revival here." He stated that the night before, he had been visiting the backsliders. And I also was told that he has been doing this every Friday evening for the last 3 weeks. During the sermon, I spoke on the topic of power, etc., etc. At one point in my sermon, I asked if there might be someone in the audience who would be willing to quit their job here in Koror and go as a missionary to Chuk, to Truck. As Elder Toribiong was translating, his voice broke, and many in the congregation wept. I knew the Spirit of God was very near. Brother Aldrich says that for the last 3 weeks, Elder Toribiong had been stressing so much the idea that we must be ready at all time, for we do not know when our time may come to leave this world. Surely these were prophetic words. Continue. Ibluti ang lara labit sige, ito labit sige la Paulis. Jadi masih on Sunday morning, it was decided to use speedboat of Mr. Paulus, one of our faithful members. He had just gotten a new 33-horse motor, and no doubt was eager to try it out. Attached to a 15-foot boat, it was more than enough. Before we left the pier, I asked, "Where are the life jackets?" There are none. So Brother Aldrich drove back to the house and got a key to unlock the storage space on the Herolder Gavilas. And Elder Toribiong took out 2. Inasmuch as he and Brother Paulus would swim about as well as a fish, I'm sure that he felt he did not need one. In fact, they say that Elder Toribiong at one time dive to a depth of about 50 feet. He was a good swimmer. Continue on. At the time I got, Brother Paulus was at the controls. We left at 6:45 a.m. No doubt because the boat was small, and also because the weather was a bit rough. So we chose to travel on the right side of the islands that landscapes for the 28 miles from Koror to Pilibhit. I had never gone this way before because this is actually the longer way. The seas was not overly rough, and neither was it smooth as glass. I must confess that I was worried from the start. Often we hit little waves, and the water would go up my sleeve on my right side where I was hanging onto the boat. At times, I got a good drink of seawater right into my mouth. Brother Aldrich had given me his raincoat, and I was holding it in front of me. Brother Aldrich was doing the same with his wife's coat, and Brother Paulus had given Elder Toribiong his heavy red raincoat, which he was using. One time when we hit a small wave, Elder Toribiong rose up of the deck enough so that we could see daylight between him and the boat. He hollered, "Oops," laughed, and hung a little tighter. I might add that Elder Toribiong knows the sea about as well as we know the road maps back home. And thus he always sat in front to give directions. At 7:30, after we had traveled about 18 miles, we suddenly hit a wave again. And Elder Toribiong was lifted about 3 feet into the air. And turning a somersault, he headed into the sea, head first. As he was going, he again said, "Whee!" We were not too much alarmed, for he was a very good swimmer. Mr. Paulus immediately stopped the boat, and by the time we had come to a complete stop, I estimated that we were about 50 yards or less away from him. We stood up in the boat, and I saw that Elder Toribiong was lying with his face in the water, with a red raincoat underneath him. Immediately, I said to Brother Aldrich, "He is in trouble." I frantically asked Brother Paulus to turn the boat around. He did. After we had turned around, Elder Toribiong was gone. While we were turning, all three of us had taken our eyes off of him momentarily, and during this time, he disappeared. Elder Toribiong floated for about 15 seconds. Brother Aldrich took off his clothes, put on his mask and snorkel, and dove and searched for about an hour, but to no avail. The feeling that I had, and I'm sure the others had, was one of utter helplessness. Over and over again, I thought, how can we go back and tell the people and tell Mrs. Toribiong? And we're children. The channel in which we were running was later discovered to vary in depth, but measuring down to over 100 feet. Right after Elder Toribiong had disappeared, Mr. Paulus pulled the boat out of the channel to the left, where the water was rather shallow, and dropped his anchor with a bamboo spear attached. This acted as a buoy, and he helped us know the approximate place of disappearance. Before we left the area, to come back to Koror and get more help, we tied two before we left the area to come back to Koror and get more help, we tied Brother Aldrich's underwear to the buoy to help locate the location. Let me keep reading. For 2 days, as many as 14 boatloads of people and 100 people or more joined in the search, etc. Today, March 10, we had a memorial service for Elder Toribiong at the church here in Koror. No one counted those in attendance, but the church was packed from end to end, and all of our school children stood on the outside and looked in. I think we had at least 700 to 800 people present. The Protestant ministers, as well as the Catholic priests and some sisters, were in attendance. In fact, the Catholic Church had a special Mass for Elder Toribiong on Monday evening at 6:30. One of the members of our church attended, as far as I know, I did not know just how ecumenical it was. I'm sure that the meaning of the Mass is entirely foreign to our belief, but we do appreciate their kindness and their prayers. That's the story. It's a long one. It's available for reading. And I'd like to also read something from Father Felix's book about Toribiong. Father Felix is Toribiong's first cousin, like Helena. He wrote about pagan religion. Sauer said was a religion of the pagan Palau. Somehow it was on a speedboat trip from Koror to Piniliu, two islands about 28 miles apart, that it happened. The little boat came down from a towering wave with a sharp jolt. The man who had been sitting on the bow was thrown overboard. The other occupants stopped, and looking back was the man floating face down. By the time they returned the motor and reached the spot, the man was gone. All the available boats in Koror came with searching parties. For 2 days, the search went on, but to no avail. The subsequent explanation for this appearance of the men are significantly interesting. The Seventh-day Adventist for whom the missing man was pastor liked to think, quote, he was translated by the Lord, like Enoch. The local believers had their own explanations. Quote, the reason for Toribiong's disappearance had been revealed in a dream, said a medium in the village of Esa. I saw his body on the floor of the ocean, covered by a great dark shadow, the shadow of a giant stingray, who is the ancient god of Esa. Toribiong's body will not rise until his family pay back their debt to the village of Esa. A third explanation came from Pililu. Obak, the god of Pililu, has destroyed Toribiong, declared magistrate who bears the title Obak. He was displeased with the plan of the Seventh-day Adventists to build a church in Pililu. I told them they cannot build a church here. And now, you see what happened. Like I get Madur said, since I said the moment again, the declassified information. Taka mo closure mo na bigyan ringi, bigyan na ako gali, para talk lang at belaw. Then kanga at the end of his life, cellular natin sa public service. Kanga devote na life ringi mo, bigyan lang arubak ni Diyos. For that, el muna litaklo, el muna litaklo at the street. Kadang ko amne composer, kadang to 2000 gigis el Montreal, and miskama short story. Lulu tira every morning without fail. Salva nilo still tutaro el oral ala Friday. Mase ngaringiya imo rubak ng mandos me tirul ngaligi. Kasi tigil utma tamek e dalak riya takaremono a treasure. O como mangis lo sigan. Tumlo mangis lo sigan ni dia ala tigil ni. Tomato octol mul e yan nam sip tiar series. Ako to termira terlong. Terman lo mera. Si last story Bernat, yang the last lo bangel kagi del Pastor Has, ma Mr. Paules, na invite the senator of Constitution Monas de Elbey, because we have to thank his father, said Bill Senge. Bolgan itak to biak. Yak mo kayo ng gumiw. Akala ko di man itak mo. Kaya mong itak lo. Kaya ang message na kalitakle, try mo doon bento siya siya. From two, siya siya.
alungil singay mo birowi utate ale malotia duira ngol mosperang metro ngul ngalgela Toribiong grandchildren ngi Rogul brothers and sisters cousins Rogul kawal ibukti ka ngi Remen Maclo, we must remember the Limre Lagosus. 50 years, amount of time, sa higit time, nga ka na-chokante. Gimnekira-chokante, merogoy at mutulam sa masaramlay. Masaramlak, tumakrap tila pick up. Gusto rin Jangan orang mengira mesti, nanya muntar gim dilah ngap dilah mulai, emas engak, lagi resel PCC, amja dispidol de people ter mamagis muturas to, lagi mstowing gitu le Pastor Aldrich, madi dispidol mer stowel di berkar dam daler murtel mum tukar adu tu ngima Pastor Aldrich, ngima mutur. التليب المسرح من التيغو في الاسبيدو مقمالي نيا مورا ويلا جمام دين ماسين Toribiong direct trabajo de leadership of sales lugar dumame inya muriya siga sigira wila jimam dين masing dia kan selinti kan ngimam mabro yaman no umrangan masaya rubakan gilu Obrelel, amanim sisi, nakapal poras, dia meseng, disuba toro mereka kira Toribiong, diselo liu itu, tiga pastor ekman betul diwal berapa, sekurang mereka sudah orang mereka, teraman le inspiration, rubah ngakamal, ulah mesengi, idol ngak, mandi aku mesengi, hope kita roguya, dulu. Adalah jansom brothers, sisters, mangalgir, malmol masegid, kaumrang, marmagal, amsulang.
Karena dia mau di orang ini mau di betul. Oke, kudu suatu ras. Mal admire what Father Felix, Marwan Thomas Masau, Razal Salim, tiga para kali sa. Sesiang musuh manlat sekarir, ikut mutlak rawan untuk 2 hours more. Sebelum sekarir, ada manlat sekarir. Ano ba branch school mo niya itaklo eh?
Milkop sige, kaya terjebel mas poda rapi dulu. Namo medle milkop sige ajan songa. Tekstil bina kya wase, ngana udah siap jadi tiagi del anniversary. Ngana mel bakra kerja mang, serbu kuwe ya, musto bego ka. Mamlep tol to agim ada tu, lengan adim lah umar tiga teleta. Ya susah di urut lah kya wase kawa. Kalau serom elle tiga usele kata dulu itu. Guk 3 tahun ada kelas apa? Jangan baik. Mungkin pergi tuh mungkin ngomong begini. Magnetic sih masih awal gini dan momen itu, jika momen itu rapi bilang, lekira dah asal gul dari lah Toribiong. Era uspera Toribiong mau telah demo itu, desa uspera yang soal mungkin taruh. Makongel Lobantre Eli Molo Trabasyo Magian Abila Salmon Yom Naswal Waseng Ang man magkitaru Waseng No era daru no soseng rahu lagi nurcato Yom Naswal Waseng dengan kentang Amla ngalah kertel basul mo ngalah natul mo soal ngalah natul telai Lempek kesik pargera pogi be Namam subdaru Yang baby orang ada yang atal borgi, minta kamu subaran deh. Ya tuta, motor susah sih. Mulai air tamu tidak cerita dia, orang air tamu begini. At baby Rao, ada orang tuan lihat beli, mata try revive rame mori lihat beli. Baik om tu ikut modengnya, elpon modengnya ya, ar baby Rao, lengan ini kau tang kira mungkin ada Toribiong, ar baby lihat dia. Malah gua iswa sengaja udah dia kata kira mungkin Toribiong. Ngasak mel, ya jangan soal nama lo tu mau ngira amas. Ya mel nak melo tu mau ngira nak. Dindakan berarti kita tolong utakan ni. Yang melalah kisah tu, mau kira apa harus sedam, ngerama, kalau orang bersuara beror atau beror, le, mak kuasa, eta ngerama, kumpulan orang kan mutul ni, kuasa rumah lagi, kau tu ada lagi lagi, kenal lagi, mengerti kau mampu kuasa entah apa tiga orang kau, mengmal orang, letak serang, okey. Kemudian dia bilang, "Mari saya tu bukti yang paling diterima maupun orang ngalgim." Lengan tu hijau, ayat bamreng sah, Islam buai. Dia nak mau orang dia Islam ukti begini. Atma ngamle polis, mau menggila Yamamoto, ermeng sa Islam sebador sis. Nak asal bala sebador. Engkau ngamle Katolik, mau Protestan, mengamu daru raikali di saya Islam belum. Yakmel na magitira merusak kip, kesel blamo o mga kle. Le mga di nga na berusaha na ada kip ro. Kesel blamo ya asuma tamala Isabela masandora. Amran mura gile ya mura seriora bilar wazan bay mura mumlulu sama sis. Ya tamang omodeli masora asumo. Mumase Toribiong bilang por serio makmei, mana memang tu para iglesia, ebo mereka tu sumo. Bisa melihat ulah tamang abu para iglesia, lalu mereka ada ramai, asuma. Makmat perlu mereka santo nartia, semua melihat ulah Toribiong ada sebab. Saya kira modul itu. Ya tamang apa sebab? Endim nak buat ingul, dimno para dimno tertoy. Maligul loyar. Memblogin memoi rabi biliar ni. Dimna kali kita Biblia ni ramai Kristians. Wajah logo janso. Begitu tuta di muri, malah besai nyaruk di muri ke mama ya. Mungkin magil mutul ni. Admak, ada Toribiong, ambil kat orang untuk toli iglesia. Milkat orang iglesia orang esar, orang iglesia beliau, orang iglesia ngau, erulia dapat dengan belungui mau iglesia. Mampek sebadong, ya gimana loading ngamat ada Toribiong, makal tigil rati, magel serah rolel ngesar mah, ngesar, ngesar, aku tulku ngeli, leset magel tri rai, yang loading ada nasi, hal gua isang klit tigil ada gimana namun ngesar, demam loading, Toribiong loading, aku lu sang keliling, enggak orang muda enggak, itu kayak gitu. Adal gelmas no ilagi bons no otro nada semado. Betiga it tiga no otro nada semado. Ekmam lingar. Tiga gibon sam no ngir riu. Tiga it tiga ada buat no. Anya adarmang mai telmong apas elil matuai. Emergoy emonian wangi lagi imim mengir gutling mamimo marodu madokto matley mabali tikai kita tama kan melalui tinggi emergo ngani atama ngar da dek da ngama atinale Toribiong adi asal tel papel tahu rogi lebih terang kle elnyam dia ada sebab mesel ngani teal engam atama kamon nar tinggi ngal tama adi tinggi lagi belum melihat berbeda rogi. Esera gibom kotor iglesia, ini maya ramai, sumang, maeli lagi akuilo abilas, mengalah kera alba, nganya ini lirai kelau kle. Temnom trulia ulah orang alsel, lagi kiri temnom angkat angkat, lompot orang tiada iglesia. Mangi maya ramai mali loi tatemil, kau sele. Menggal sandra, ada almaria sandra, nggak santora. Letak kita merangkul, temran berhospital, lemlam ella sandora, mata adama puri mo sumang ang lega de bora malge mamo sandora rai makli hindi teple tika gitu eselado asin jangan jam kita spering ni mo dulu mo akra barta saya tetra Toribiong mula shaul lar ad meliwekla mula katora tebul seidai ai mo amlo seidara abaules ya imo amlo mo seidara ngir kalam Emodura imol bilas, engum saya ya ramai membil sengil, engyam lo pulla bil sengil, itu sepegal bilas holding legal bulur belau beli. Misalnya uga Biblia, engum tigri itu mo. Alsuma bicara rumah, emoreng bertirak lalu, jangan rajan 14-15. Toribiong amamnya soal lagi bo bertirak lalu orang Biblia. Memble beringat tinggal berkemah. Lemble soal lagi bo mungil. Yang ani amat sa Biblia on ngori ilmu ase. Se doran oles, begitu ba? Aku osa. Ndel madel, emo kodor oles. Magel ngerel merkamam. Amle bring lemne so lagi bomumi. Dimna la pikir guru ma. Atar kurse aktimra da do lekta di beraptu. Dengan ama jani. Jani lagi bo. Agi kau sele nyatri bektorak. Magi aku olo bangge. Agi mau milih rendang. Itu asal sebab rendang itu among ikan mau mur selbita. Mama among agi ikan mau mur leme. Mesra me ya tuam lame. Masih temlam mau tu rendang. Mau ural ma. Kasalang amila. Siapa terlegi rumah. Aku banggelai betul. Agi kira mga ramong umdong subes. Agi mo na asowo, magi imri, yung mga ramong kitay guryo, emo mla matakol, ra telegort house. Ya umisong akter sila rumerse, itong amam. Magmemo nguror, amam ako, di nila kita po talaga malebata. Matim naktumli. Saya ingin membriak, panumrin malebata. Bisa kira ulin betak segam lama tu. Kita tahu tamis, tiap lekul, mat lekul kita benar, suatu mereka. Mak melem begitu. Saya tidak Toribiong, mana soal lagi mungkin, kemudian suasana mulai ada buai, mahul mengger mur taja lobis ragam ni. Mesin lewat terkongres tamat lanta. London survey. Agen mana agen teto spintri. Agen kau ni. Mula marta kual sel moria rob sel gigalem mana ni. Mang tu kau tu betul. Ingmo klega award, makmo mau mengenai award. Magen bek lo broder babel tawa tilratin. Ngati nama dengan mamra gibor ngarar. Asal bisikela, adu bisikela captain. El pagrut bisa kapan el tamang absada tora buai magi ngari mo magi kelo bertrit tirga morabila atmala tina magi kerni atma aset tirga gite mo tirga bebi digi makti yuwadi mo duli sei matara klub sei engari atala adri klub nera bima el Mrs. Mitangfle makmudam ngkang adri tirga wala tatranga klub Makmum kang mo mga kerjale, tiga ada berbagai kita lo ni. Kami namo lo mesti tu kami lihat. Ay kang kerado isilbet tema. La owi ng maklar di maklar ba. Mandem tiga gura. Ara kira turun. Segi gura egi may. Yang atang jagrel ni lagi mo sabi smart. Hindi nga ngtam nila blila. Asiska. Nakmo tiador terlai makmo ebral purat kuang ebral no. Sige tablil gen mas. Nyap on. Mungkin telatra. Al mungkin takel mas. Aloy. Misal ngara elmer mon bulan ko dibil gen mas elmo. Makmli sibel misal raturo mo hise makmodo. So odine. Siate tete ruba. Toribiong leswal bulo gen barungan. Ania atar bara nalonge Vice President. Tamala Peter. Iraibyo. Lum tera blungan alone met oror. Murai gagi delo ondi buraboy. Makita tiyan di mama. Akmed rabla abuse. Abuse abrula Apollo. Matra klub se alangaw dudi. Na orega on table. Entang aw dudela. Ang iraibyo lang namal hara. Abal se rabla abuse. Toribiong ang aw dudel. Musang iraibyo. Ekmuri murgo moral along. Murgo dang lutum limar. Mleptikan murni ezegali lipli. Mundang mo limar. Malberia boleh ogel wase. Toribiong marang lagem to mamara. Boleh. Aikal la muti dasin marang lagem. Mesegi ta ulum no kan la muti. Enga ulum makla patengek. Amles bugok le. Beses. Betai wai wala kis marwai yo enga angua. Ana selawa. Adang ke beteng tel samus. Merata angu mutobra. PCC. Emei makrubu leng mai emom ol be emek mangale to de mara. Etilam i sedang amani. Mande bingat ke rubahan mereka. Dia manusia ngatur Biblia. Mereka mat sa Biblia kilu sepeda tak buat Islam. Adama sel dola mabu kemudian ngelgel mornings macam aswat tu. Mula madul macam aswat tu. Mau ya adama bahasa adama kau nam jam telur. Leda mari apa telur. Mati kalau burung kalau ambil tegak telur kalau ikan itu lepas tera. Atau isau pula iman. Wasabat sa Biblia wala tidak telur tak boleh. Berarti sangat nak telur. Ogeri masih ruan kata lagi. Burung tempat lagi. Saya terletak telur. Ekmalnya tiga murah beklar. Tiga lo beli maro, apa tu amru rab lima. Letel lima mani yang orang ikai, esment eumen. Ya beli lah abuse, beli lah IT, ati beli wek kerana mati nak beli lagi lesel kita. Bertiada beli beli wek. Besar tu tak terlalu berat amru. Engi ada kalau digerti, amru lah kali lo lam mesti. Mahman lo betul betul. Arwah terklaim, arwah abim, pergi. Kesel amru. Saya terletak Toribiong. Masukan amru lo kena nasi. Kau boleh betul mesra lah. Tiada udri tu di tangan rasa. Jadi rulway. Ketua orang lagi, oh tiada terletak Toribiong. Elak mo bebila. Egel man ko tu. Toribiong malep tika ura iglesia. Iglesia tika ura buai, emo alman ura iglesia. Lekin ura buai di temporary certain. Emlongo akkel, mulme mosi clear wase Cristiano, abo Cristiano, ay kita dulu lah siobai. Temo milarat, tahu mula tahu dudirarat, tahu or, emlaong taret, melatang taget. Mat asal orang nak makan mabilio atau Toribiong, nostor sebulan sebulan kelwasi. Ngabrol mabilio, masuk ada orang jelisal borol, ebom mongot mo. Lagi ulumong tiada Toribiong mat kela di belakang lobes, maulah kela milioner. Direct milik orang jelisal sepatu ni. Apa serak? Amlo murah ya, nikting. Mungkin memang ngai jelibutul konsep terbitar di imam. Alin apa dengan ni? Kekeren utul belai nasi. Yo si kiri masih ada Cristiano, kita tetap Cristiano, ada usiobai kita tetap. Mape serang amlo milioner. Hindi begitu kulwoi, hindi irak mokmum. Leng entah anak. Anak ni gelam lo jangan lo lagi saya tu di Toribiong, membenar mida mape serang. Melamo totalin dimus. Begitu ngartiang, pomon tidak lalu lah. Lu kena biar lu atau siobai, pemgergi kena mabul, penulisnya soalnya, emo siobai melemat nanti tele. Mak pun lemal baru asurang, lengkai dengan artinya. Asurang lah teman ada lu nasior ni. Ekman maklat kiri atau orang ontar, hal itu aisyah tete atau orang, obu asurang. Melaram liga aktif tu ni ada tu, emo melengah tangan, lomar ramlil. Terus lagi kan udah menguasai rumah malu makit dah perlu tu aise. Mengutun mereka tarak ramlil, utun lain. Itu betul malah lagi yang pada mengilar rumah ni amlin, itu dah highway, itu dah green light, ya ada red light tamui totally destroy amlin. Obo aise, rumah ngerak nak tu beli, ngerak mau aise lah. Eda kalau dengan tata ramli ke ramo, di jo samdi. Di nak mante tara ramel wasi, kabung. Natural berapa pergi gila. Empati yang ini semua melaya di orang diskau. Saya akan taat mora asurang. Mendira kalau besar akan taat terus sendiri. Masih saya ngomong besar bere. Eblang mesor asku asmadong, Michael esas asmadong. Lihat mau makan tertib baik akan taat. Apa itu orang? Aku kungir atau lain. It's better to give than to receive. Ayah anak itu. Magkabili ng Toribiong, mamtas na ganito. Buta beri drama ang Toribiong. Lekta nga rin. Emnem na rin, singkat yung mga suwak lata nga rin. Mangman beri nga kasi gumdas ulit. Kasi, kasi may bilata magkumas kasi. Pai ka ng tata nga rumah agna. Lagi lang kaya masamam. Hindi masamam may hatata. Ma, ako dula besara. Ma, at ke, makmatur ada yang ingirun me o sikli tora bidra kan shobai atama di makmatur shobai di bnege prinsipur Allah alula biblia maul tugil besri al mudral sis belwer tak modula kla tamam ya wakrat ngoma ila sis al boria sesel mudel da al mukit atama nushura gura ngedi ni geles Katolik, Protestant, Spadong, Dorong Sel Brano Wilade, Perantante Beri. Seguida le principio la Toribiong, Dorong Sel Brano Wilade. Mauli terjadi rohul ngelgen, pomlar ambil, pomlar swa. Aher tergambil, ma, abi hejur gambil, masuk gambil, no damai saya tu bulan na, atau otkau, endiungil, itu sudah sergam. Lagi ngambil kita ngara, Juli tu tiap ngilong ke. Tidak aku tak bisa Juli, mana lagi dah harta tak. Aku masih gila kita Toribiong nama, mengeru, eruan, kilo menurut kau, itu kau panggil, bila lihat Toribiong dia nak tulis terus Marcel ini, itu terletak bela. Mengira pompora, kau sesuatu. Nanti egat orang, lalu nanti baisi, alih alih mereka terus beruntung. Di kalau saya sudah Toribiong dia. Ulu mulu na, lega asal mana Toribiong atur pelor bangki. Eti roha di mem kekeri. Ajak so ambil road, laki ambil road, lagi orang awam ni kekeri. Bakti tengah ka. Mak betul aku riu kumo. Toribiong. Ngal memang monggi. Ngal mendim lembiak kalau saya do meeting. Mulai yoel di mana. Mak masih, Toribiong masih. Betul, ini manfaatnya mungkin kau. Kawan sulam, nanti pemerintah sendiri. Seorang pelajar, orang Islam sini pun seorang pelajar. Saya kira siapa keseluruhan yang pelajar. Itu asal. Yang harus kita aktor na, yang kita belajar di kisi. Mungkin masih ada malam kampung kita aktor oleh polis yang menggarap galbus dalam sana Toribiong, menggalbus bisa aktor polis yang mengajar. Balkom mana dulu mengajar. Nanti siapa seludah kamsal. Pada malam kamu selalu sih terborik. Yang mana tadi ini di usul, yang borik usia maru. Josi lagi suap apa? Yang mau tu beos. Yang ngarang kawan, mesti. Kira tu bagi amos tadi. Lagi tu beli untuk malam. Jadi merangi diri saya, kata merangi diri belum. Saya tahu tu diorjam. Kira obguk. Saya gospel braver. Mereka kita terkarang kata malam. Kade devo. Ya será. Mo gay ni de. Emo dula kla jani. Selu mo kla pada ka mamrang. Sege sa el matra ma kamale selie. Meskula ma sege se. Ya hasidam le senser kama. Ya jani tili. Ya tili yang matmala school mo de marni. En toda school e mamrigen. Emo me de lu randa ki maswes. Besira le meg man misa wasi. Dahulu.
Tak lagi. Saya kotor, nak kotor na itay. Kapag kailan na lang. Matama. Barangkal berdongol, mga itang. Ya Helena maraming Nasco Elementary School orior. Yo batil. Satu lagi masuk. Tadil, sangka dia kalau dalam. Dengan apa kita tahu anti. Setelah hasil salah dia buat dia dalam. Kita masih. Lalu hasil better. Susukit. Ya harga musik. Surang and whips. Soal buat pusese. Malun gitu ni pusese. Surang mudah.
Ako tula mal berguru mal kita bilik. Kalau sobran sih sebenarnya makan itu. Makwase mal kira kerja kerja. Nanti lah udah masih tiap musik. Makna yang musik tiga orang melakukan makna. Itu dia kebelakangan tu. Dan dia kembali dengan saya program yang musik story musik. Anyway, mal mura dan susun. Belum berkormat, lewat aku mengarnya pemandangan kita dalam makai bumbu. Mal betul kan, mengarnya saya berkumpul dengan aku te bagian berboy, enggak aku te bersoal ada pikiran kita. Aku te bersoal sama tahu yang ada mal ini senang, nuklah lagi ke berkormat. Kedua ya berada pas soal di mana kita akan berada. Teman, mak, enggak, mereka terus kerja mak TV, email, mak news TV, enggak tu mak tu barang kan. Mak tu itu asal, pahmula sekarang kita memang tu rabas tu. Talen dulu asal tu itu, anak kami lagi kimnar kerja masih, enggak ada, ambil speaker OB le jazz, enggak isi dapat kumel bas tu. Enggak. Entar sigang ako dahil lumulong ko dito. Kasi maling hitak ka ko. Bukwate, producer of friend ka. Sige na lang ako gumagawa siya, di magkakatam ko. Nakatinga ka sa loob, nakakatawa. Di sige na lang ito Toribiong sekolah sebatu mal pertama mal tiga buat yang soalnya yang mau lihat tahun tadi kira si ulangas atau dibilang ambil kita segini yang marinya pun soalnya nah normal banget tu enggak mal lungas luas nggak akmal kira kalau sekolah sebatu mo basto kemer oya school naka mo tu mo bisa kata mo sokal bis tam trago se jadi dulu apa mak polo se jadi apa Toribiong Uchel nakakabiyat sudah kan pastor lek ditul mo kami sa mga mabes sa tata le say dito lagi bakal mo mereka klub lang video lagi masara nila se kapan berarti nila sangari error siya lagi moral para video jadi gol de gol kaji le betul sa pile kali ama ngalat mo na matiadi de gol de Because mo nikah mo mulai tinggal kau sih.
Dire belum kakak lah, kakak mau tinggal lagi belum. Aku mungkin berapa video, dia belum mungkin mereka belum tinggal. Jadi dulu asal dia kan bergula, boleh mil besum, lakam terlihat. Sakot aku sikiran kelas Dios, dia rogo dia berapa. Mau masalah pergi, ngarkel ala dia kasar menani, tinggal sel, pergi sel shop. Enggak ada tulis toko siapa, tulis toko Amerika, tulis toko berau. Ya, aku mesel dia aktif, malu berau sih. Kau guna sekolah Amerika, ini asal. Ada orang yang mesel orang mau ini malu berau. Aku dah suruh sekira, dia datang, itu orang seratus orang tiga, dia lalu seratus sedikit berau. Kita ini aku orang malu, esolagi Maria berau, sila boleh. Seguir usando en Francis. Lo hace, el auto del mar, el mergo, el pasaje va a ir a abrir, va a ir a otar. Itu orang sortau. Ya malak, malit tiru a ver yo por al menos por mis favor de I don't know. Seguir estando en una soldado que me 67 $. Baiklah kita butuh mau 200 material, 200 material ini mau adalah pergi jangan selalu beli sekalian. Makasih. Kayak gini apne saya ngaji dengan bersama sendiri kita. Apne sendiri kita angala dia wari beli. Dengua kita Toribiong Februari 27. Luasay, malungil ang namin ang tao, maklahong, may gumalamol, Diyos ako, nag-rogo ang buhay. Sige na lang ko yung Francis ang raptor. Agat to yamli, ang lukoso lamang, makadimlak magsak, hindi yamli nga total. Yamli nga daw na sa tiyam kita buhay na rin. Mutan lang. Hindi ako sa global na highway. Hindi ako mura 40. Mang talaga ave jama total di gede sel tadi kan dia cek lu aset jam dia orang boleh kemai nekal ada di lu tidak stop sana mang yang lain lo sakalo mari 200 maternya yang damage ini ala 3000 maternya jadi tergamo murah lu aset me Bagi pescador del mes del cero, oke, tinggal di mana loya orang apa sih? Ngari orang dia sering ngari masih. Aku lah pogeran, ngari acian terkau mana? Sebenarnya mereka 10,000. Mereka 10,000. Elaga mau toktam. Mengkamlang besar, penglam besar. Masih kamay lo mulai sering lo mungkin kira dekat inak besar. Di tiang di kata lo men tiang itu. Albewi le, ayah kita tua, untuk gitu. Mau masalah lo de mau umuri insurans segala macam mau buat dia kan salvar teman. Kita kan insurans sebab sorry mas, jadi baru hospital es por mereka buku awal terkreasi. Mungkin lo era kita ada hasil dia hoy ay damage mang ayer kaya lo secretor yo mera que mande gusto sel bebila yo ro la sia kayak gitu sex mera mo kamu makin umur kesolangin mo siak ragla dia le wase mal hilo sigra adar moment kya maka kita kita ya segide apa gira lo hanom hita mungkur sera friends lo wase namos me le ela temu sa adar me lo wais wase namos me la tuyo magundas se kamal ni pial lo mata rangam Rusia malu ni babi me Kaya 1965. Nung lumiwa, di ako madali angkor kami, papar kami, ada ini. Kemudian masuk rumah ngaka, tu juga kata lah. Kami amal proud, engkau ada masih, mebu ay sila tertol, murah masih. Kami mesa, area kamu keluar ada mesa mumi, murah mumi. Mumi selfal tu kalau dengai, tu meriwa. Pasti dia kan selfal mau proud, selfal dah suasana yang boleh. Baby Allah ikhil lena tira kari mesti saya orang ini dia kan orang ini masih banyak pengertian promosi masih dia kalau timset promotor kalau siapa promotor kalau akan berisi itu kalau belakang dulu dia absen sebentar isu baru itu ulah malu kalau saya ini training lebih skala del baby lagi dia udah sen mau gol game mau lagi dia siar game mau latih lagi kita mau saing kita mama mal di nakal el udah lagi dia siar mengkal ada dia kalau nih lo sendiri lo saw leng kita lah buaya kita lagi dia siar kita yang belakang lagi lo sih kita maka ila sel semua lagi kamu tuh mereka dah pun alas lagi tu pun gitu. Dia masih, abis dia kan sebra level. Kira mulu dia ada di memasukkan korek. Lagi kita ada subra Francis, lagi subra Arman Mori. Kita tak lagi. Arwah kau biasa, anda malak ke marwah Toribiong ngaka. Ambora kayak gitu deh tiada nanya saya di klub tiada kampung apa sih dia me kubung kamiul murai rai kalau saya dia kalau sih kami ini Toribiong obat tri di maka aku letak di luar sengkra dia kalau mulak masra wala kal mur mora alam degela arinra kial toa enya bermasil sel bisela bables jamma oh amigai bemas ba kundia ko pas dia di bakar matel yo ase kagire lugu hotel gibel ukuran mesra da yang Allah kan Kaya di na kalau wala karuba, ako silubigi masih sel toran mo tala, mo kaya karuba, dia akan kalah kalau kaya karuba sel, dia akan sel orang kita merada, harap orang semir tu sel, ngaruh merada karuba, imam letak salah ifrah, kaya dia letak salah ifrah, nak kalau masa mo karuba potiles mah. Dia kalau terlira, ego tim lem terlira buai, kita terlira buai, terlira eklesia mau terlira, lola orang, mana bila picture desa, mengapa bila kalau bisa kira mana mau kita mana semerian, lagi bila ego kusta, bos berwai sebelum mau masih, kalau apa hati wakon, mau gelo logo video masih, angin ngah. Aku parwara sih rumah. Malu bilang.
Ada minta lagi the mengira ite sudah get together. Jak mo dengan live ini awal waktu. Ebon longkar Indonesia. Kali sudah dia live. Ako besingin subat ko orang bus subat para salud subat ko tapi ko bus mangaya algela lakius debe bolivia sel story gira wodo lakius salot be oro ta puto mili jadi ko ngene kan atas hospital ng narati ay ko tumo ile ko ya kan be oro Terus alas na yung marulo ko doon. Jiwa tungol sa tulik. Toribiong na children pedal mo Toribiong. Isa rin malaki sa children mo Toribiong na mga kamarap lima. Sekali malso. Kaya tergido tornar play yang naintiera kita para play. Tinklera por certificate Lucius Toribiong. Kaya ngalagay di yauro. Yung story ni World War II. Kaya lulus niya author yang mamotosin siya clear. Ito may deliver niya sila ng service.
Kaya story to ko ng Brigel, maktin mo mo yung rin niya. At ito rin niya, Yamamoto finds a Daniel. Kasi without a doubt, Toribiong is the #1 Palawan. This seemed like an extravagant statement for such a responsible man as United Nations Administrator Heran to make. But this capable statesman was serious as he spoke to Pastor Kalstrom. He was aware that Toribiong was making plans to go to Japan Missionary College, but was asking for a temporary delay until the new government was well established. There is no leader so promising on Palau, he added, underscoring his assertion. The story behind the rise of Toribiong, the modern Daniel, who presides over the National Congress of Palau, is a dramatic commentary on the ability of God to appropriate to his glory the devices of the enemy. The success of God's plan for this key South Sea Island Adventist, strangely enough, hinged on the faithfulness of an obscure Japanese boy, the third son in a family of 14 children. The son of a farmer, Yamamoto-san had been brought up in a poor but dedicated Buddhist home. We worship before Buddha morning and evening, he related later. It was the first thing we did when we got up and the last thing we did before going to bed. Even before breakfast and supper were sermon hours. Father loved to talk about Buddha and his teachings. He never failed to travel far to attend the special spring and autumn services. But we were very poor and the future was dim for us boys. We could not go to college. My elder brother worked at the village hall and I found a job at the post office. One day a friend stopped by the mail window. I was looking at your picture the other day, Yamamoto. He spoke earnestly. You ought to become an artist. The idea excited me, but I wanted to make sure, so I consulted a fortune teller. What do you want to be? The seer asked me. I want to know if I should be an artist, I answered uncertainly. Do you like to draw? Yes, very much. With that, the fortune teller arranged some omikuji in his hand. It was a Japanese way of drawing lots. Draw, he invited, and may the gods be with you. I drew, entirely naive about the methods of the unscrupulous old man. It is favorable, the wizened old seer enthused. You must become an artist. Without hesitation and without too much judgment, I soon arranged an apprenticeship to a commercial artist. This man, however, was not faithful to his profession. He had so many other interests that I found my training to be unsatisfactory. Discouraged, I suggested to his foreman one day that I wanted to quit. I will show you a good place. This man sympathized. When? Tomorrow night. They are very good people. They are Christians, and you will be able to have one day off every week. I was very happy at the prospect. Sure that I would easily resist Christianity, I answered him readily. Yes, tell him soon that I will work for him, that I will come right away. When we arrived at the artist's house, the master was away. But his wife was there, and I will never forget the first sweet smile when she came down the stairs with a small child in her arms. This is Yamamoto Seiichi. My friend introduced me, putting my family name first as the Japanese always do. Yoku irashai mashita. She welcomed me, thus for everything was encouraging. Where do you live? She inquired. I am from Yamaguchi-ken. Why, I come from the same prefecture, she said enthusiastically. Just where do you live? Our home is at Iwata in Tsuno County. This drew us closer, and through her kindness, I was confident I could find work here. That night, I stayed at my friend Shimoto's place. I can still remember the potato and miso soup. The kindness shown me greatly strengthened me, and I returned to the artist's shop. The master was there. Yamamoto, I announced my name, Japanese style, bending deeply. Tabuchi, the master introduced himself, bowing slightly in acknowledgement of my humble overture. I understand that you want to work here. Yes, sir. He looked me over thoroughly, but always with a sympathetic smile. We will give you a try. You will be a temporary worker. The rest is up to you. Resigning my former job, I got my belongings together and moved to the Tabuchi home. But from the first, it was plain that he was testing me. Your first job will be to wash these windows, he ordered, and after that, you will report to Mrs. Tabuchi. Yes, sir, I replied, still optimistic. From then on, my work was to cook breakfast, clean the house, and take care of the children, 1, 7, 1, 4, and the youngest a year old. I was not learning art very fast, but somehow I was not worried about speed in learning the profession. For soon, without realizing it, I became deeply interested in the teachings of the Bible. Every morning and every evening we studied. Their love and their example momentarily disarmed me. Day by day, my questions were answered. But down inside of me, this new Christianity was fighting my old Buddhism. Often, I would visit the neighborhood temple and listen to the Buddhist sermons while I was taking care of the children. Yamamoto-san has been with his new master for only a few weeks when his former employer called on the Tabuchis. In Japan, it is a serious thing for one man to employ an apprentice away from another. I have come to take Yamamoto back with me, he told Mr. Tabuchi. I don't understand, the Christian artist was puzzled. At this point, Yamamoto-san stepped into the conversation. I don't mean any personal offense in leaving you. I just left because you were not around to give me trainings. The visitor became visibly disturbed. I left because there wasn't any hope at your place, the youth continued, stammering himself in deeper than ever. This angered the questioner more. At least don't blame Mr. Tabuchi, Yamamoto pleaded. At this point, Tabuchi-san took over the conversation. If you still claim him as your apprentice, take him along, he offered. But I don't want to go back, the youth insisted, half defiantly. The visitor turned away ominously. I will be back, he promised. But he never returned to claim me, Yamamoto told us later. The Tabuchis taught me to pray to the true God. They taught me about the Sabbath. They introduced me to Pastor Kajiyama, whose gentle attitude and smiling face made a deep impression on my mind. It seemed that God was taking hold of my life. One day, Pastor Kajiyama's sermon was on love. I remember that I was so impressed that I brought a present and went all the way back to my former employer's place to give it to his children and to apologize to him for my rudeness. Welcome, Yamamoto, he greeted me, much to my surprise. He inquired on my progress. It was your fault, his wife told her husband later as we sat around the hibachi. It was your fault that Yamamoto left. You hadn't done your duty as an artist. I visited him many times after that and gave him literature. Pastor Kajiyama would come each week to the Tabuchi place early in the morning before breakfast to give Bible studies to his workers. It was because of this study and the encouragement of Pastors Andrew Nelson and Francis Millard that I began to think about going to Japan Missionary College. Then one day, Pastor Hide Kuniya came to our town for an evangelistic effort. "Would you like to be a worker?" he asked me in his fatherly way. "How do you mean?" I had not thought about being a minister, but I surely wanted to go to school. "I was just thinking that a young man like you should go to school and prepare himself for God." "I would very much like to go to school," I assured him, and wondered whether this might be God's call. "Have you taken your physical exam for the army yet?" he inquired. "No, not yet." "Well, if it is God's will, you may be going to school instead of into the army," he encouraged, and then invited me to pray with him. I didn't realize what I was praying for that day when the physical examination did come, but I prayed anyway. "God, let me be in your army instead." There I was with many other young men I knew. Hayashi, Uemoto, Saito. Down the row of doctors they went. Every one of them passed Class A. Then the doctor in command came to me. "You are Class C," he advised briskly without explanation. I was well and hearty, and to this day do not have any idea why I was placed in Class C and exempted, except that this must have been God's plan. For 7 years, I studied for the ministry at Japan Missionary College, supporting myself by manual labor. Then my adventures began. From the college I was sent to Hiroshima in the southern Honshu, and from there was sent as a missionary to Palau in the South Seas, to islands that were then territories of Japan. Almost immediately after the outbreak of the war with America in December, all Christians were placed under deep suspicion. The police began to visit my meetings. Then one morning I was called to the door. There they were waiting for me. "Yamamoto?" "Yes." "Prepare to come with us." Without formality, I was quickly taken to jail. "You are charged with action contrary to the interests of our nation." The judge advised me in a trial that was private except for my guard. The Christian doctrine teaches against the permanent prosperity doctrine of the emperor. The tone of his voice was not harsh, and I knew that what he said was true. "What is your answer?" he inquired courteously. "I believe that what I am teaching is in the best interest of our nation," I pointed out not too hopefully and tried briefly to explain. "I am very sorry," the judge nodded to my guard, and I was taken away to my cell. But down in those islands, away from the Japanese mainland, I was treated much more charitably than many of our workers. The rest of Yamamoto's story is told by his friends. Even as he was walking through the prison gates, he was preaching the coming of Jesus. The native policemen saw something different in their prisoner and treated him kindly. Yamamoto said that angels were always with him. The prison keeper soon began to give him more and more privileges. In Japanese prisons, the warden is usually given wide latitude in the court. Yamamoto had in the previous years also learned well the art of deep massage. For in Japan, the masseur is always a well-employed man, and often a tradesman will thus pick up extra money during the evening hours. Now, having learned that the warden was suffering from rheumatism and wished a treatment, the new prisoner offered his services. "Are you sure you can do it well?" his guard queried, somewhat skeptical, but anxious himself to have a part in a good turn for his chief. "I am only offering to help him. Let him decide my skill. I will report to him at the next change of guard and will let you know." The warden was delighted at the prospect of such relief, which he had thought was as far as Japan. "Bring him to my quarters this evening at 8 o'clock, he ordered enthusiastically. After that, Yamamoto, because the warden's official masseur, and like Joseph, became the favorite of the prison. Sensing the favorable attitude of the warden, Yamamoto sent an informal message to him through the guard one day. "May I worship with my friends on my Sabbath? I will honor your trust." An earnest prayer accompanied this request. A reply came more promptly than Yamamoto had anticipated. "You may worship with your friends, but of course you are prohibited from proselyting." The warden instructed the guard that he was to go with Yamamoto to every meeting he attended. This meant Sabbath school, church, and cottage meetings. Day after day, the native policemen guarded him, and Sabbath after Sabbath accompanied him to meetings with the believers. More and more, he became impressed with Yamamoto's godly life in prison and out. One day, the policeman, who had been ordered by the warden to go to Sabbath school and church every Sabbath, spoke quietly to his prisoner. "May I be baptized too?" he asked, like the eunuch of Ethiopia. "Why, yes, if you believe in Jesus as your personal savior," Yamamoto-san promised solemnly. "I believe," came in the came the same sweet answer that has echoed down from apocalyptic times. That guard was Toribiong. After the war, the United Nations trusteeship decided that the Palauans should have reasonable self-government and called for an election. Toribiong was voted by his community to represent them at the Palau Congress. Now an Adventist minister of deep consecration, he had done much to clean up the villages and elevate the moral standards of the people. Meeting under the general direction of the United Nations Administrator in a free election, the Congress emphatically elected Toribiong President of the Congress. It was with good reason that the United Nations Administrator Heran had spoken to Pastor Kjellstrom. Toribiong, the man of God, was clearly the leader of his nation. Yamamoto, the Joseph of Palau prison, had in the providence of God found a Daniel.
May the singers come to the stage, please. Kita saprot floor steady tina salini.
Oo, Eriko man yan.
Sa alita kalimang itak ka rin niya, mawala ng alak na Royce. Several composer niya, Toribiong. Ayun ko mo itatlawan, precious Lord, take my hand. May mangitak lang ako. Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn. Through the storm, through the night, lead me on to the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home. When my way grows drear, precious Lord, linger near. When my life is almost done, hear my cry, hear my call, hold my hand lest I fall. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home. When the darkness appears and the night draws near and the day is past and gone, at the river I stand, guide my feet, hold my hand, take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home.
Ngayon nagkila nanumi, soal mo muyura po. Louis Urselsil Mangkela Raymond Masud from the state of Newell.
What God hath promised. God hath not promised skies always blue, flowers strewn pathways all our lives through. God had not promised sun without rain, joy without sorrow, peace without pain. God had not promised we shall not know toil and temptation, trouble and woe. He had not told us we shall not bear many a burden, many a care. But God hath promised strength for the day, rest for the laborer, light for the way, grace for the trials, help from above, unfailing sympathy, undying love. Thank you.
I learned something from the life of Toribiong. Life can be taken away in the blink of an eye. So enjoy every moment of your life, loving your family and your friends. Me era podo orgulho e tira sister Helena naka first cousin na Toribiong. The bell offer closing prayer e auriu la Joel Toribiong bolon suma. After that, you can hang around until about 10. Thank you. Sister Helena Morani.
Magatelek na gululu. Ubak li Diyos na akam. Pangarap ka ma'am, abla-abla man meron ka ma'am. Makamas ka ma'am ang asew. Lomakra rangi, yung mulay kerson. Akim rin nga sulim magkira na lagasus. No sa maman may. Irong itak lang at tangatargaw. Kamam rogoy, magiwamre, lagim kasakla. Eki mo tirakla tikingin. Maklangarak mama din ngarabot ang madew ring. Eki mo litangi, labang kailangan kaya ng Jesu Cristo. Amen.
Selamat kembali ke Dias. Ya, tiada orang yang ada gak berarti sampai ini. Nakadiak kuat tidak. Nakangara kalau ngelela, alam tu ngelela Toribiong mardiak kalau tu ngelela. Sila makan 14 lagi, 14 dan 14. Memori nakadiak al sal betul kalau kuat tidak. Aktif tu ngelela makan sel 2000. Lagi mora sales. Dangan ay muklo lagi mor sel blam luertra. Kalsan saro sel. Sel ngari sel isngul. Bagi ngara sales dangan ay muklo mo 6 store. Isi ngari asi prada makam sel kim ngari me engukta. Sa sumagi di mrael. E graya gi men sel bitara to kaya yako. Ay gil kitil gi mo lagi ka malakus sa siyan so mabrati so bayaw kel. E gi mengalak ramisen. Bagi mo kulong na yung kaskutung kung may lalaki na bere. Pero ba ano ba? Kaya tumakan niya katsubel, may umam giptograph limang. Sen dia ka malngaram. Sen mungos makambalang na skura sa bago, mga kita para sa. Kitingal ko blida lang si. Ang arisel ko kambalang ang uringisel. 7 minutes na uwi school. Sa gimla, butmuk lumame dito orang dalat tua kasi doon marayan. Ngoreng sa sel ko tanong, ala katagok mo doon sa sel ko rasko. Matama kata tiga rata. Selo leo da kambak doon. Akpay iso ako siya mga milere. Ay gel to rak lido mga ran tinarke klaro basurangan ban flora dam lakmo. Alingiray mustrir tora. Abransis. Nakalbis ka klaro buara. Sige dira ko mo ringi maklatpur kanu gede ko mo. Di maka amne hotel mudu orang itu koi, asal liliran lagi ulah. Awalnya dia semak nombe, eger rogol dulu koi terang adi gili terengi. Nakalun mukroona kamios, marah, bosek. Tirgel beli marom na beli mam. Of all the people na beli mama, matrak klub saya gindo lagi lesia gimora me. Agak kami lalu imor pai. Abrancis, mamam namo somam ngartiat pai. Hindi ka pwede kaya siya min ka doon. Ay gimya o siya kadam lamira di mamam mul pokol. Kumiyam tali o siya kadang game kita singeru ba. Hindi ka mamam le surrounded by those people. At por omis ang abuse am rula mo omi mo. Agi di nga di seri ilbangar arbuli marom rabek krisis. Magibera bitang ablat pengel am rula mo omi mo. Tiang terap di mama beli dia nak beli merom, kaki tak tak torian on mana. Yang ada imol, toko macam apa pesen ni yang ada imol klo ada pesal, ngarar bara beli lah, atau malah franco, murul ngai, malu milar ni. Ya ada Cisco dia asal pergi kemam gibo mau lembiak. Gitu mana Cisco sebenarnya pergi gitu pengen lembiak lagi ada aldun bora. Kau ada ikrin yang kali sih bisa kita lembiak lumur mureh ramen mau magi omdit meratuk tel. Ikir segi dan meng, seguk life orang nggak kambal ngal gerulung ngai. Nak Francis ako tas ako mama. Agim level all nga lima mga ring gigit dalmaman de kes silbil hana. Miray. Arwat doktang akira nga tungol. Ikatang mas menong rungay. Sige tam lima ari ko mamra. Hindi sa kalwas ko man sa roboy. Ako tas social cook Claude nga ra maka adim la ka bertelele frank. Di sensil sa buto bidita kita to merela. Di gel tilo per alsil sa to niya ka to ni. Unda sa aro to niya ka to ni ma. Amay de ngal ka lumui. Ana lumik mal dia ka to ni. Adi bora mo tengen ding brin o ila ulmong. Mula di regal tinga rapli lemla dingin bla metiap trul wase. Kada open ringi ila alsil sa kudu pesen brand. Akbre nga suliar bekla. Adi imol to mal so kan di bring ringi sa tamak. Atara ko tumle engelgel amluer. Monsieur le maire lima men gegre. Ya tamak abul tulu kya tu se dase de mourit ringi. Lela gen tidak bol mar ka gim lang mas souli. Di sel mo amluer telmeng. Ano ang iman mo malakal si el mo watu ekat melia benia mang motor ngam amluer. Tapos yan makana adi amluer tatrak mal part na rin. Kuman sa ulo ko. Ak mereka ada kan kasolo asetia. Awul ma ananumi bali yomur. Unas 50 years dia kan sal. Mesti kira waktu lagi. Bela kadang mau tinggi nak lu mengiau semua wilayah tahan ni. Emo blok tangul bos mira beklat. Ak mereka luas kasel triek. En dia kan semua lo. Sei moratoi gumral waseng manmuto na kung nakatan logo. Nakamlek lubos. Ya ulis ang imol. Kang wisdom to de. Ada ba? Lagi de Johannes tadi. Ngol be otina. Eu ase tiang al bitigir ni ser el or bitar sem nada ni arma. Esem na to kana de teman ni. Aku gore di turun ide ko magur tirar bulis tungul mol misanggang isendringi mo wadi energi timla kati energi di sel time itu sebenarnya kalau masih dia nggak boleh lah ada angara 44 mo 50 ringgit din timla kan so kabul closure ang hindi to ko sa energi makut diri si oiti hindi ko ta so singa di nga kan lamborghini closure legan mergol telal rak yang man ne bring la abla kundas bring la brain ar bekladel lomdas sera bolsera mam luer bekil sese de bom do gidmo sera mul modo clean gora mal kedem le acceptali ta pesca itia imora tol dimla ka adel sharing mergit kita udah ring segede tira terbelau lun muy wa karubak matina sabado matina tragavelment mang ulum das luas ya maka al ngilua o ayo ngaria experience nga kal kereduyak tarera mak ni marome emose segi morap trula imol mas na kara ayuse amrula kal sil restaurant Anderson pagi to ortian mo so restaurant lang ya pas penaplo ayo belum-belum keruan. Gila kita mil ko din naman mula ko marut rin. Bakti mil din naman muti irak po. Ingul memang botos lugar lang rin. Yung mula ko rap true from Engswell. Bakti rin luang numeral wasi sa kita lang na Engsel. Hindi kayak kita botet. Buk nga kayak man botet nga true ko din muti. Ako muna sulah setiang dia kadir closure mora. Kamam closure mo gitu dong. Nakaul makti adraboy di adraboy sige da buk side na. Disel de boragel lolo branchi sa tili tringir ro. Engania tok tang doktor yano di ala ka doktor lo ka mlas web. Aktire ng suang bering asulela na Isabela Masandra. Será que ele viu meclo al muito ligar mande vidro mam. Le será que ele a primeira vez malas sandra igual eu vou lá tomar. dia aku best ni lagi orang sex rabli la Mr. Bowers. Elo prida prida hats. Marbekla ko prida mga sandra mati mineral was spring mo di mineral mon madiring kal prida hats. Alo tu ten dia beri. Gora mal nagalay fa mal understand ra arar di at mal sandra sel mga familya sandra be ing lapal wa James. Mari seguir. Luego tamu la que se me sangen. Ngora madi de sange suaden mo bitani mo tu. Ending la balwa dam sela mula sandra. Ndem sa mo. Ko mal sa robuy. Ese alma da gran que ndem la mo 60 madrile no. Dice la nganiang lungu. La Sister Helen. Yang agak kurang katan gil kerja terang lagi lagi bisa. Merang nu agak di mulut. Desi yang plek lengaram sih di bulan luar. Koman sablo, gue direk masuk di mending asulan lagi mi. Kemama titul ada dalil. Selbu por segi tertarat gue. Koman sablo ibdul. Kelang tengah telepon.
Koman sablo beklarin nomor kan dulu kita media ngasih kali media ngasih stirnat. Rupiah nama boleh masuk media manusia. Nanti pres lagi betul lagi betul ini bu. Kita rugi martian koman saudle. Sumang family koman saudle kita gerubakan mal be sebenarnya sudah lah tu. Semua boleh cili dari encourage inspire. Ya belum orang ngasih, belum orang kata orang ngasih koman saud, ite. Avarai Vice President, avarai Komandan Saudley, Matulik, tudo lagi kau sedang teru. Kami kau esok bodrat agemi, elang di informal. Kel Godines, serang di star en dorgi ya speech contest bela uruki. Lagi blok tu di berdek arah kau terbaik. Ya bol merek, ya winners, makam long edei, arahnya makam long eru, makam long. Boleh kepan Saudley, Udah mesti kemal mau Saudley mau tu, malu orang ngasulen. Lebu me bersama imora perspektif ra karubak, dan belum orang lagi lah anak yang asal rumah tu nanti. Kepada kerana lah mungkin betul betul pedesali. Kepan Saudley, Mr. Marcelo, kepan Saudley kau Masandra. Appreciate you coming over to bring closure to my younger sisters. Kuman Saudi Betlab. Live Kamalam Saudi Olay. To you it's a history. To me it's a memory.
4 on point on 5.
Itay Kamalam Saudi. Lang na mo informal din. Kurang alalata malusya siya. Mesti ini aktifin muda tura siap sakit dan gue kan semangat tuh ya tapi kan di rabong tidak belum oi kan
Marsal President Manungil Kisigil Melki Rogoy alu molon susul maray budul Mr. Toribiong ma Francis ma Joel ma Toribiong ako te di po tera Isabela ma Sandra Di bawah dengan sulit mal recognize a friendship rasumang ma Toribiong. Kapan saud. De boram letra time en molding nga olbi la regular active delegate. Emlek munal base alen amal geren di dah modengay di sumang ma Toribiong amal letar di esolai sento musiuti ra da dura biblia. Ya Toribiong a David ya sumang a Jonathan mane tarandir masyura lugar kero uman saura anoral hospital gubernador sengay Mr. President tadi soal ay sedia ayoela giblem kau product grown esolay mal kau tigadeng esel gim kirel ade gimoili la gim lima rome ukmo adra yakyu ibdula Yoel amle adra Israel le shortstop ra tim ra Irai Ace ngima Moses Rayob amle manager tira Obukrira Johnson Toribiong. Nga umuldara mo manager Orior yak lem degel wasing yak adra yakyu yak madu maklora blila Yoel Toribiong el tengla se olay Mungyang ay disela championship plan ngar adra Irai. Merbo megu porcel kilo ila maman le adar orior. Ebo mol nasero na kan manager at timur orior. Madi ilit ya Irai bdule. Emo kedar bigela timur orior. Ma timur orior direct man le improve man to kan ngilo yak kilo da orior. Edi ukmal dingage Mr. Toribiong. Edi bo wai sulu asenga ka tamaka adra bar del Sydney sidang play. Ya tamama riri dra March 1965. Ya tamama armi dra December 5th 1965. Madyo si siurak esolai sera rid en directo dimla tigra budngel en mutel al sits. Magim moral mem klonga mayoel agibel olka plat los olay ida diblem kegel ade modia karmat mungdu armuth. Solang ultig dengan rangal gate. Masera bolsera make, sa bolsera Toribiong nge widar gig. Sera bolsera make nge ayar gig. Sel bol lear priar rangal gate. En palto hubets luin tanjobi. Lepas setiagit sel ler gig en rumida hamak. En maklol malgaw tinga ma Yoel Toribiong gidel say gidel wase. Monggabiul nalgela Toribiong ngat karogui. You're very fortunate to have your fathers. Hindi Bob Esmerian dadang Mr. Toribiong lo say a memory ra miu al wam le mudangali may gelesiam le mudangali may gel lam dong ra Francis sa sera kamaldile lagi ngang ra school et or madolo mesra man le mil kamaldi dil subum ngelon margik widargi ngang ra school ra sabadong esel bololis akla Toribiong en soal moray gelesia le lamal gora sa ligra tulik man le gren ding dirga akrasi el madu el mud adu el wa Toribiong ra sela konarana. He was an inspirational man. Spel man gotra siaban man gotra Miguel man gotra Belau kagidrel ngal kamwa attention ri e jaran bolo ililan swalo rex madibo tulwa say all of you ngalgel marngiltira ngalgel Toribiong. He still lives and he lives in you. May God bless your family. Thank you.
Pemberal asfil, bekata brail, amli bam lakon na aray airport di Brian Mason talbesi di produk masbuk malakius. Kira sibo. Jangan begitu estabela begitu seseng, klorodi. Kata rakot tumdes patrasku.
Mansaurate al mat mewarumuk mat adu ulkire la kel kotel malala isel mal kotel klo la isel arungkol el asela aquí por las curas sabado el tulbo por las curas sabado emle tester ngalo hase magara om monguibo to place ka man bara grades. Yang kami nunggu yotsel, tulungal karayuns. Magponi kwasi el ora. Tulungal karayuns, magpo mang wasi oy sa ma no second grade. Solan, sel kunda sura Toribiong masuma. Ako mesal naman mga souls. Ay kerong ngabisalsment, may kerong lo pagkakakal. Mal sumat masih Toribiong ala aman malom sarung mitir pepi ya ga mal masisi na adara sumo ngal kong de konin noki ya kimara akimara sesel Toribiong ma au le ma adamak magala ya kimara nonget en web tat Toribiong na takot subo. Ek mulbase Adi na Isabela mlarweb tratakot subo. Malo or makwasi na adi na kapuk mesa sa higil gora. A funny side dari kita lagi martoza. Aligar ni silo mala kalwesi. At the same time, ak malonda suha kona betul berdua lah. Most of the time, mesel pura dahulu. Ak mulai gelesya sa bago. Mga kamla, alam sa betul kalau si sak, dia kaat, la impressor nga, inspire nga, wala pastor Toribiong. Nagtata mag-entertain na kasi ak mamalus a life story la. Ang interview kasi video interview. So lagi masel kung dasule ang milo sa mora surang was kapiatay sa ka. Hindi ka na school Philippines. Siya babiyan meron kasi at iman mangilagaw and mesense la school sa bago. Timis ka scholarship and mora school sa bago. Nakaramlak ko kasi man lo personal interest din nila at nakita sa luwasi sel o masugol mo ko rin siya kagaliak maran di betul me manisya budol marabli set kularay ya Toribiong basta din akmam dit mari yung ulo bay pul asko ko makwasi eselo si sa oy milir na marunay diktat basyon sabi akal padri ang marunay yak friend rasiwe so ay mati ak tidak sa nakali alaw na kang papadar marunay yak sa padar mo do basyon atarak lo se ese que magpura que lesia ko man kira siwe dong o Toribiong on malusis aklan di man forceful in conviction ngara asera mo sir aklan yuke masel to man Toribiong on masi remember the Sabbath day you say remembers siwe man mas arulong gloria essential remembers and they say that malo esilwasi Jaka around the Swasi, Jaka the men of the 19th century. You know, impressed a lot with lasting memory. El vaya Toribiong. Como me sabe que te algo me está muy caro.
Sampai malu tu betul.
So asal kelihatan tukoy, ala dilul base, seragin na sekolah amat Toribiong, dimsal harus, dia belum seragin, mau kita.
Interview lagi namanya kita tahu yang tulis aktor basic things of life. Tulis kemudian kata orang satu serangan apa nanti abis siapa bela. Nanti mungkin terpama di rumah bayar. Istilah time yang tidak boleh kita bayar, tidak boleh kita bukti. Istilah kita bagi rumah. Toribiong untuk ok telangin dari orang masih keting mau bertiap tua lakus untuk ok telangin dari timbang tidak akan dia pak yu ya one day tosira esra kimba ini aku bilang shay bernard orang mana yang tim telek ya berabla kira masih kau tak lim berkau masih tosi masa kira bui yang ada di leul barat berusaha tohu Pagkakil oktor na kingiram ka tiyang plin. Ini pede makno maududegil me mumsiak. Istiap to grabo mado. Mengkalok to na kasi kamor. Masyak mabili. Masyada sa alin. Dek daw siya mga judori. Aldaan ko berlin. Lagi na judori asal. Manda mo besi ni mak perlu lok do kami sedikit tadi benda balikan ni. Ya ibong tulen wasi kemal mo mudu engalian mu tematu urga. Dan bibir engkel mudu urga marubak siwa madal legulgok ding mudu urga. Menguasai narinya imol sibara syabara sela a clone auditorium. Tim lo dia ka ala gimana open. Tirkal samurai itu orang tiap backstage. Yang kalau gotul bagi orang samurai lo keluar nangil, hati belakang kal kiri. Dan kita anggar lagi kiri. Kalau si excuse me di mana lagi. Tinggal di kiri apa gotul beri dan belau. Asia baru lagi. Waktu dia saya lagi, kita iklim, itu dia ramsar. Yang orang banyak kesana iklim, mugul kalah. Partante yang aku bertel belai. Kabat hur kemang. Bebek tu tinggal sabra bordo tu, itu cekah saya dia rugi. Mati dengan kalbot tu mereka tu malau. Nama tu even nervous. Kalau tu dah saya dia rugi, ini kah imor rasa ini. Korang mana masar pun. Beran mak roy tu, bertemu simbol kah imor rubah palap telur. Mal gulung pasti boleh kamu ramai. Betul kah imar aku terbilen, betul dia hangkans. Pasti. Boleh kamu tugas saya tidak orang lain, ya kecil ni. Masih keman mau betul, enggaknya betul berkau. Enggak betul berkau tanggul gok, abal esiwa mana. Dia mau besar seniority ramuk taulah, kemudian ramuk taulah. Saya kira kaki lengket malu, raised kaki. By the way. Aku di kong lawasin naskura ko mal mer belau el bangurun ngai el dui kam iwai ibo bile le mai mo to legela set am wasi Francis Francisco
Agi berada keluar keluar Cisco lengkap ke kena penting nak coba dolar ke agi le besar mah aku apa orang dulu ya ulbo le alo to la por certificate ro menga keluar kau bukan apa tu kau belajar kau. Ayah betul soal wang mai sini mereka terobui. Kau tu tel, aku lihat di mana aku tel maki ras pulang mandula ais kartel. Kau trawe untuk tu berapa? Mengira legal musika, beli asap drink mah, beli apa yang maki betul. Melibet berkor boleh ais karakter alsi. Sekme ada makasih. Dalam biru. Akhirnya aten. Yang ada kiloman, yang penting kok kilometer. Bila tatri. Eka pikir melatela aten. Eka toma latri. Oh, elawai sekarang. Sekarang orang rogi. Enda saya bermotor ratri. Kapan bermotor bah? Itu kesos ratri. Mengamu maten elbe, lebe so maten. Ega di kesos ratri. Lega nak toma lagi kerja. Mengamu orang kita toma boru. Alta wasek pada bukul omru. Lagi toma lapan betul, lagi omru. Oh, betul begini. Wasek kali normal lalu. Itu wasek nama mungkin. Lagi tinggi song. Tahu sekali. Pada soal waktu organisasi gitu. Kalau kita laki sudah nabe, itu ni, enggak, lo lega, ambil terigi bel, mibok lah kalau terigi lega, aku bak, mau bak mul, belum bermara orang kilo macam, lagi rel,
kita program
orang lima mel, matmok lebur odoi, yang malu orang baget te oitia. Moita, odoi epora urat del mo, mesa yakyu. Al permang enti agan liga amna pri. Lengal mengera apa blo? Amna mang yang mai pri. Yang kablo dalik mo mokir ge. Legeleri ageli do dir khmar. Adi kilo ko bale btergi. Gai da nabe ka tam solem. Agi wala ba bi ga go blam. Nama Vietnam ko permang. Kami buku tu saya kena. Mau busuk begini kan bro.
Era tematrakle namin ira si Wong mga senator ulit betul. Ito belum mura 6 story blip. Ito kada mo dulu banyak Anita, lu lagi di loji serta mereka tinasali le hitam de hero saja pada Yoel. Yang ako ram de host terjam. Kita batiran wasai asurang whips amla pera yang dinner gitu. Hindi kaya kaharawi, kamu makpal gitu tergil batap sakto, percaya orang masukin mak. Manusia surang lah. Manusia dito ada belamai, yang hanya solokku nyala sibong, boleh selesai di mamalipe dan terak lagu. Kemudian katanya di tidur lebih, waktu itu agak jauh
Meron mo cloud ako mo sa mga kaya ko.
Lagi mo kasi kini. Hindi kislo din na malem na naman. Pero lama ako ulit lo karang Makam lem tara spelling bee. Bengkiri ka tutun para spelling contest. Inga ceramic test ka. Kung mo lagi roboy word ak ti correct ri roboy. Kung kinalak kay kay word na sa list mo para esek to boy. Bakpo mistake bakpo to. Dikir gitu kan. Kita makin tiap orang yang modal ke word, ada ke sentence, bukti sih di berawal de tester lah. Bakmo number 2. Mengaku praktis sih, tabok pakai mengasal uang karu. Anyway, adik lalu gue beli be, kau bilang kelme.
Lalu dulu apa?
Bukan accuse.
Aku bagi beli.
Tangkap manusia lo gue.
Untuk dia dibintak ke imak.
Kita aku terklot kata dia masih self suku kau real dan tidak real dan moral from one point to another. Masih kemangat karir ilmu terma terbahas. Linggil sekali menjadi kemangat karir. Omosu 4 hours itu musuh 6. Omong kerja itu yang hindi makan mo usul. Kaya tingnan nila Yoel Ramadan Merma. Masyaw daw, masya kemangat karir, ilmu terma terbahas. Linggil sekali menjadi sacrifice. There's no success or sacrifice. Mata tunga microphone sa gaso di sa siya, talma level din lang kau.
Sulang nagabsi ka man saura tiap dali mer ma rohuy akara holi pingan mo dewa di leon kaya belum beri adel mel ngar ye om di berak lu grab sige mai kana sedu de kap ilo itu haras ko ginara jangan rata pat mili ba
ya lang para mamalo.
Akar honton me berbong aku tuh dia udah kuang aja targa. Hai. Aku dia kental sama kamar Bakti baru leng leo om. Aku murah di. Ya, oke dia nggak diplok oi tirik lem dia kan. Dia ngeplok tuh lah masa amna di oi tirik. Ya. Ya terus saya berbong kala. Honto itu normal tuh nggak air tirogui aktif gue meselingil siasing kita nih telur alat bak tuh ada minum sumber tir orang bakal teruk. Anyway, tuh tera ini di sekolah mer orang mak, mau ngewil sekolah. Emle aku mengirim, aku merula, angigel. Ngau kan, nggak dia lagi kerja mereka nggak dia sudah dulu nggak.
Ibu otorat mata, terus baru aksiden.
Tangerang ngaku 10 odoi mak, nggak aku lagi nggak dia udah mati yang tamu dengan odoi. Di mulus pera kan bro lagi kelek dia atau ngira. Mereka masih mengerada katangi kalian. Aku dia mak itu kurap lingel. Masaya kaya kan nunggu ya dia orang kotor detak kita kan mulai lagi kalian. Ding kurang nomor suasi tiga dari benar kat tu bodoh. Bakti Toribiong Uchel. Seluruh masyarakat tinggal kongi, tinggal. Makadak lagi maka. Kasi batak mo trongge ay gitu bros kira ng magtulang. Lak mo tututak ng bilat mak na. Ituk mo nang dulu nakrap tulang. Otak razib. Ngakam na imam.
Siya tertenjo.
Ato kay gilgin rumah kora. Ngar otobargin milmiram tiam dra tuang na. Ya kumbas ngi mergong magali. Butuh ngarat musikal. Itiak pegelin boleh kasih ke soror lagi. Limura bila taktai mungir dia kabila babang. Mungir tiap siapa babang. Anu dia oleh tu kan. Atau dia udah burton dia tiap tu bernak mula.
Bisa isil tu.
Engkau mau kelebus engkau no.
Nak baca ni masuk sini kan jadi.
Tidak mau kelebus dengan yang lemelir rasul. Menurut dingil tal, menurut dingil menguasai ya. Agak sengih boto ngambil ngambil.
Tinggal belum sih bolam tu.
Tinggal belum sih yang otobaran isang 50 cc. Mau bagi deki molam deki malila tun mal sumra yang lemel merkoi sosbi. Agi moral biar berusaha.
Kristoban.
Ordelar mau Kristoban. Ya kita lah ya kabra. Kelu layar terra. Dat maisang. Mereka dulu apa kusur gitu. Yang mah, dia tu baru begini. Ngakar murtel mas tel. Tiga kena surah alam. Lembateng lembaga sabuma.
Murat siapa lagi?
Mubah bulu orang belum tel petara. Kalau dia kaat dia berubah dengan mas.
Ya Abdul Nusaygas.
Meraih nomor dengan lengan tel dari bahasa silakan orang. Dia makan gigi atau miang. Tiap ay sa ulo asi ya. Akyota.
Jota.
Bagi na bersoyo asi. Akultur asian song budul ngesegas. Mai mau asi dia akultur gil budul lah mal.
Tidak ada dengan
Di mamle kayak gitu lebih dari mama. Mari dulu sak dari mama. Gil dak dobes dengan gil telemal derul. Yang menurut gimbal tak mampu meringan lah, mengakipan mampu kutung, akipan mampu kutung. Berbuat lah maka tinggal mampu kutung. Itu adalah semula kali kita kata klia yo yang morong masaya kyu, lengkal saburo teman di sini, karena saya kyul, ketingkat dorong siang ada, lagi terang masaya kyu, gimbal saya kyu membagi me, yang mau yo yang kali kalau. Ngara dulu lah, agak le diokang, baguti. Kita pasti lepas belum na more kita semua gini le. Arung me waisa lagi lebih tak manu beringan. Dia lalu kau sengalel le, mesti musel de lawan le. Makam sel di dalam merasa lagi dulu, agak mati, agak tetap terang lah. Elmol, ending ka nga di, mas ulti na mo ngilar mo. Adi, after 15 minutes, yung labo ngilar mo, limang wala ba, luon mong istra kama. Pagkakang mo, feel siya, bertiga na yung masay. Ilabadi na lang nga natin malinding, bertiga luon lagi. Eh, mo mereka mas kamautam, mag-yabda taktay, basa. Di yang kita, di kulko, di kutungaling. Lo tengok di dalam dia mendukung mensikat sasing biong mera bilas. Dak kuramo bakal bersih kita time dah. Jadi dia kena di seral milu es basing Raal Reach sama Nobuo basing Darmi da Toribiong.
Kita pick up truck ni lah.
Pick up dah, pick up lah. Kenapa?
Kita mai dulu je. Berapa lambi lah.
Oh. Masih. Yang kuat tim lerang mamel mol kira alto asim mal tiga bentu. Ding, beda tahu sih, nggak tidak ada pernah mungkin tak.
Bagi kita butuh.
Laki sarik mul agil ang aranay di forget kan. O mungkin ang aranay di Glory de 44 em lo mo mar. Na ugi merak ang aranay. Tela future sih. Sudah rogoy. Kaya ang rogoy. Why social atmosphere sel time mali charla salam ama neighbors. Tarutak peran mora school, dak pon of rakin na din malet tin mora school. Semden Raul, tanaras na bilel, malugil shirts. Itabila American ko. Din lagal sa sa bilel. Kita pan siya dengan ada exercise so ada ichar ko man saul. Dagel mal karon main martian ko man saul play. Yang dia abot ang saul kita tuloy ng martian. Di ore na sa liudet lahat. If you will be an alga, there are second chance in life. There can rewind, there can replay. When it's over, it's all over. Pasengkiro na kalaman ng 43 gil. Yung biyang tuloy na nakra 43. Yak mo ng liin di kaya kita na ko tugdo amul ani. Naawala kyusan doon kataw to lang lameta. Ito kay kilwel nga dam di blue ang gel ma. Iban ko dilo sa mula batuk. Sentiment dia ka aspaks mo libero mo usa ka loblir ter promo. Kung paano sa ubek klar dia do Jesus one of this evening ya mo go to liu lagi bukti personal ka mamra game gegre. Dia ka tawo juluria sa ale ka di lo to yo tao action only. Dia ka do so ala sili or 1 hour or 2 hours. So 1 hour 2 hours. One step ahead. Yang masa ka om juduri ka dio kategori be tu leg mereka ada masih balik kan ya boy tuli kepan saul oleh ikil bukan tu kolam netal bol step father kau mak ter be masuk dia khusus dia tak tuli kemudian sese ka kita kara spelling bee ya speech contest sendiri lodi
Gerbesnya betul deh. Gua nama berkreat kalau gue imam. Tadi para ketiga malah kerana dong le. Istilah mama melihatkan karubah kalau wasai morgi ya apa lagi kerja belum tiang ada six story ada sils. Semua mau bom film mergi. Maku gore murah inventar wasai. Yang Michael kamera kau Michael, emong, enggak hati aku. Le Johnson amoti Claire. Yang hadirak terbetul ka alta dia kon dia maknis ko nga ko na kasi moran din dia mali university Toribiong maulak mulai ko man sula.
By the way, kung natukoy monotony, I can't sleep anymore. Malugit ako too much. A life favor aquí is the piano. Maria high low, a low notes. Kailangan gusto lagi rogoy teka harmony, teka symphony. Maria sadness, happiness, ecstasy of victory, agony of defeat. Isip mo na kita, na life for kaubi. Pasinta kayo utas. You have to do different things. Dia kami maarah-arah. At Toribiong amle game dara, game limit of many things. Tingi ruli natin, kaya mechanic. Jadi sige na buluwer tao, udulat Toribiong eh. Man na tinggal murat mo ito. Mga ribo lang. Interestingly enough, in Madra 43, and Mama Madra 72, 73, and Ribo na 77. For some reason, ako mta sosyal kita beklade, giren nani from the inside out. Giren ora hart giren ora keng beon lagi. Kasi hindi grok ngarang come from the inside. Of Christian from the inside out, they are outside in. And outside in, and you look okay, but you're not inside. From the inside out, and you look okay from the inside and out. Reflect on the lip. Kapag sa ulit atin, hindi kita mo kau meeting at udo. Development mo na.
Sama ya kurang arabong atal bay, lebih taruh simir belau. Elang, rubas, ketika kau dengan kembali. Jangan lebih kita kayak gitu, jangan lebih. Tinggal mau celebrate a birthday, makora anniversary lah, waiting lah betul buat apa mah. Makot ti alih marang asunay betul belas, malah bagian ng ketekat kan. Udah ketekat mau lagi, malah bakal slow bengkel, lo tak karuan. Udah nasulnya lah, ulung ong, pagkukulang tagay warngin, man masaul. Udah nasulnya lah, yung Benjamin, tara superstar Blue Belau. Alihat ko ra ulo got mukil mongil. Ba awel. Logi clear mala Toribiong get Toribiong Uchel.
Maagal barang tibang.
Maagal barang tibang. Tangi. Efraim oleh. Musis tayo. Pag mi urol dekli bile ko man sound lay. Baba. You look good. Sabi ko ate, di malaki sa mga iran, mura konto lagi mga game. I never met him until I was like 10 years old. Nakati kinabudong li. Nakotel pero oreon, nakamatalak. Lagi na kumiyay ra ngiwan min ra kita. Ya melta ka mama ayubay, blue taxi ni enanya to el. Lagi mas ramlay o tayo kalter ulo ra konto malia pragi. Engi ako agi silti UC Imralam si Imralam lumasa. Al-Memesel tugil al-Marmar Dumol Semenigal Blay Tel Tatoriano Toribiong Uchel mauliye Hirena Maral Minglak lo udira malaka makosim kadang al-talam ito la Hirena Imralam Morsel Nordumol Lingania Pambu Maring Maltul Mambu Yakti Imralam Mara Pambu Imo tigil move further. I feel something. Lo tigil mo pura bla ka pura bla ni mat baka ulu to. Ina ka takpol ang masiksa ni tigil maramor tial blay. They feel some resistance. Subconscious. Ini ato na Francis. El male nga rat el tricycle. Ese o korban de galeng lo. Mangarat ya kasi ya maram man asa mo ikla. Makmas ringi. Ikot paak, magpunta ka na ket mura leong. Yung olo dakan mon o taklang ang dito ngay et mura lay. Yak tuon ka Toribiong mauli. Bakura lakyus, aklo confused. Hindi nakatalgu dami guguli. Hindi kasi tulira kalit. Hindi na rin special rin bernak. At sa libro 2 hours, siguro 4. Francis kepada social time tidak boleh otak plak pura serba. Esel blani kai seram lila kavinor bigler. Aki kir serba bengkel mirail Marcelio gel trabalhar to yano. Ele leu mais só lius. Comando saúde clara é que no story boleh waktu aisyah biulen. Kalau mal lagi na 50 years sa rural man. We are 43 and 68. I'm 68 years old. God bless. Good night. Ya, malima murmur tungkol sa support ni Income Vice President Rul Belaw.
Masih moran mo mengita lagi numrang. Ma Francis, ma Yoel, ma Jansu. Lagi bong ya kuase ngirumrang ako. Kisilogin timor tiang wabadi kangan mumpera. Kakate lo. Aku ngirumrang seragil wadi segenas. Kim dah kali kilo koradi. Magi metal tabla le, mak table magi to progo mo. Engi akora wase. Ya wase. Kau masih klindelen. Klindelen. Paling baru buat aku bersih. Rumah sapi naik. Maka misut malikin room, yang kada murtel bela batia sapi naik. Apa rasa? Amdom semakam na. Mulbong yang berko itu saya mau tirau. Magitel bela ulu kan berbalik. Lensing itu tinggal borgin wasing. klim dele le kam le atra honda nra hon to mak biak ko de wanu tidak mungkin dele yang tulik ngi mar lu ba dur setima selengas armul ol gola ma di to ser matol mo pritra perfectionist serio tidak lagi mukura tiang apa sekolah lagi sakit oh ikangak
paling kami lapang terka Babsada ulangan suap berik Atara rulia ajuki ekmat soma pelkal magi dongnya ngeri itu separa jadi siam ome mamur atara abur terajuki ya sase angara tenjo ekmama angara abur Engkau amu mengajar web tertel selajuki mana uang be engkau betul apa ada dia Nanti belum pernah kayak saks pilot bel pura umel mutar dah lato umel maksud sebab tu gilmu engkau kam maksud akalnya engkau yoel ya tiba orang bermal lebih gim nama orang kerek mahal melura papa tinggal lah maksud kita sekali engkau apa lagi orang ingat kali macam akalnya dia pengajar palsuan Melbetel abare persis mutale ajuki umsakal begele man babak te mo ajuki umsak ate boal sebi engkas ase ya karai abla tom o legal maro adi me oswe betul abli miu sate teleger buba o legal mabla tom maro legal adi lo solo morik ngalengam na mga asase sa teleger ruba umdaswa alek klep ole tuadi misal de das lo waisrao arba janso angara nga batal laki sangar lam lungoy aklara am el mengkira ablay man man do tiaru ni man do so nga akhlena man ka di klara akhlen bergoy ing mulukla dalam bergiwan man man kita ru nya berma atagale completing le emoriwan maultur radma wasai ko mangkeling alpas pura borgiwan magi top de momatan lor sul mari gora bulku ti amanto tim pedas mahpo ge setega kera selum para tas liwan nga tim le patale botin nga tim tora tu to mas tas tak mana botin longan nga ke diga ulen mahpo nga bataan ahpo nga umesringi mahpo nga umesengkal kanta gimas sengenari ya tim lo tuh lazim begir betul lo tuh kelapa jangan soal mau saklah karara lerang makbor sa selbitan dulu giwal makangi itu pun dia dah ngatur klip orang yang ada sih lo mungkin lingkang kan tidak ada lingkang
dia kemakian renduing ya mi akhirnya kita story lagi lagi kan orang betul mel lo start orang betul melasok ka masamuel ra terbir ta yang bilang saya kami aktitul lo ustad tanus akar kami ustad tentine belmat mo de oli putih ang ari so si ewil ngari luwap tru ya apel boom diras tiga di perseras bagi oiti mo kaya betul egalak lah iya betul malam maka mungkal mu gadak ngartel dun ka jal ngartel
Berhasil lebih di bawah telepon.
Giong may gitu le, bong may le, tak gitu le ngartel. Mol. Dia ngartel kal le, osma. Dia mentuap teng may le, yang kapten mal gura dulu yang betul masih. Dia alsi semua ngar mo ora kilo bangke.
Oke, Bong.
Yang.
Merupakan sila di last. Yang mayoel maswat sa kabulat tenjo. Hello, de mola baigale.
Beato. Attenzione.
Ancora io iba se dia muntorti attenzione lenga atra la sum arterio. Ya modo longitti Albania. Tinggal mas. Game to the game is. Dia ka. Adit tilo to pur amron. Itika ro ko ya mo ka sa muse mrak tulang bilin mo ko sige. Ya matu na se. Bento. Kadi ano level kamal ko. Tidak dapat tengah tiap lu bermursi yang makasialah. I so much for that. We love you all very much.
Everything is out.
Sulang rowe hal lepas itu kulit dan nama orang kata dengan mengelak laptop state orang bokre. Mempai di blue root bot pakai pai tak ada dua kayak gini mungkin once blue moon. Keman bersaul numi keman bersaul teruldas ya keman di festival ayamar man beli tikel toy leng mukon out diswek. Ada lengan limlat kerma ada krisis. Menjaga problem mana? Yang orang harga makmalah kesil pasio. Ya atau melelbak makmalnya dia kayak ada. Tangan mater, nanti renga klok tu tadi, koman besar le, ngerak soal mau, enggak mai betul lah, enggak betul dah buat sesuatu, malah Toribiong, enggak mai betul lah, terjadi berdia kimsal, orang bilang orang gini dengan mam, mak betul orang yang mam terus magi gelgus stasiun anti, magi keset terus subah ambil 3 milion sarunai betul. Maki mamla yang moy. Betul arah ngalam dara bila ongklung. Makbo mak beli resep orang merula. Ambil gengnya. Ambil betul ya sih. Yuta ngan ke Francis. Kamu mesti ngamen ini kan gitu. Mak orang yang mau berpartner betul menyamak orang bilang sih. Kemlang. Kung nama magsuri, nama saya magsuri mau lewat itu. Aku kalau sa Toribiong betul aku pamrih lah. Ang real mergit, di takat lebih tiang itu lah. Ada mau takat tu mo orang, umpang ada mau ospak lebih saud. Apa? Kita lupa. Ambil lagi terlebih time. Jangan mama ambil lagi misal, lagi nak ambil lagi mama. Jangan sama jani mamran maskurah kuam, yang mau giuru, yang mau nanti kita dengan ini. Kaman sular rohul.
Beyond the sunset, oh blissful morning, when with our Savior, heaven is begun. Earth's toiling ended, all glory is dawning. Beyond the sunset, when day is gone. Beyond the sunset, when day is done. Beyond the sunset, no clouds will gather, no storms will threaten, no fears annoy. All day of gladness, all day of dawning, beyond the sunset, eternal joy. Beyond the sunset, oh glad reunion, our dear loved ones who've gone before. In that fair homeland we'll know no parting beyond the sunset forevermore. Beyond the sunset, oh blissful morning, when with our Savior heaven is begun. Earth's toiling ended, all glorious dawning, beyond the sunset when day is gone. Beyond the sunset, no clouds will gather, no storms will threaten, no fears annoy. Oh, day of gladness, oh, day of dawning, beyond the sunset, eternal joy. Beyond the sunset, oh glad breeze.